Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Noble Podcast. Or at least that's what I'm calling it. This is the podcast where I talk about, well, anything other than hockey. The Fourth Line Grind is a hockey-only podcast. The Noble Podcast, the quote-unquote original one for me, this is the one where I talk about anything, be it movies, video games, real-life events, my life. It don't really matter. Everything's fair game here. Well, okay, let me discuss what we won't be talking about, and then we'll discuss what I am talking about. 1, we will never be covering politics in this podcast, alright? Never. That's never gonna happen. I prefer not to express my own opinions, and I prefer not to get in other people's opinions' way. So in other words, if you have an opinion on politics, fine, but leave it off my podcast. Thank you very much. 2, I will not be discussing religion or terrorism or pretty much anything that has to do with that kind of news. Like, if there's an event that happens or a serious tragedy, then yeah, fine. But if we're gonna talk about the whole political aspect of those things, we're not talking about it, okay? So now that we're out of the way, I have a very good topic to talk about today. Okay. So, it has been 5 years. 5 years since Mass Effect 3 has released. Yes, you know exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about the dang ending. Because why not? Excuse me. I mean, that ending has been ripped to absolute shreds. But, I mean, then people seem to let it die down, and then when Andromeda comes out, now everybody's getting pissy about the ending again because now they have Andromeda to deal with. Oh, that game. I will never buy that game. But let's go back to Mass Effect 3. So, before I talk about how bad Mass Effect 3 was, the ending, because Mass Effect 3 was awesome, it's just that the ending sucked. And yes, I am talking about the extended cut as well, because the extended cut didn't fix the ending. It just, made it slightly less crap. That's what it did. Did it fill some plot holes? Yeah, that's all it did. It didn't make the ending more satisfying. It didn't give me any more closure. Yeah, it gave me more than the freaking original one, but that's a very low bar to cross. And it just barely crossed it. Oh boy. Okay, so let me discuss what makes an ending good? What makes an ending great? To a video game, or to a movie, to anything, for that matter. It has to be satisfying. It has to tie up all of the conflicts, or maybe not all of them, but most of them. And it has to leave you with less questions than answers. Meaning, in other words, it has to give you more answers than it does questions. It has to leave the player satisfied. It has to leave them saying, I didn't just waste the last 100 hours of gameplay on this series. Which is exactly what the Mass Effect 3 ending told to everybody. Seriously, go find me one person. Go find me one person that will defend the original ending to Mass Effect 3. And no, I'm not talking about the extended cut. I'm talking about the original one. The one that gave you 3 different choices and they were all exactly the same, just different color of explosions. Seriously? And it had more plot holes than Swiss cheese. Go find me one person that will defend that ending legitimately. And I will slap them across the face. So anywho, getting back to what makes an ending great. So, I already said what makes an ending great. So, what happened with Mass Effect 3's ending? Or not what happened with it, why did it fail? Okay, first of all, the ending to a video game has to be satisfying. So everybody is building up all these character relationships. Everybody's building up all these decisions. Whether they sacrifice the Rachni Queen in the first game, or whether or not they, save them in the third game. whether everybody made it out of the suicide mission or nobody but Shepard did. Or maybe, you go through the entire thing and make different choices. And it all should have led up to that one ending. And it all should have been altered or varied. Depending on the choices you make, the ending should have been altered, right? Right? Well, turns out that none of your choices mattered. So in the entire series, every single decision you made that was supposed to affect the outcome of the story ended up being completely thrown away in the last 15 minutes with some ham-wave bullcrap and a plot twist that ends up filling no plot holes. It just digs more. And seriously, I that ending was so bad. Okay. It says, screw all your choices. Here's 3 different colors of explosions. Which one do you prefer more? That's your ending. Seriously, they were all the same. Destroy ending. Red explosion. Shepard dies. Mass relays explode. Normandy crashes. Control. Blue explosion. Shepard dies. Mass relays explode. Normandy crashes. Synthesis. Green explosion. Shepard dies. Mass relays explode. Normandy crashes. Who thought that was a good idea? Okay, so the ending wasn't satisfying at all. Now to the other point of leaving you with less questions and more answers. Okay, first of all, if you actually did a little bit of research into the Mass Effect lore, you would find out that the explosion, the destruction of a mass relay would actually destroy a solar system. Meaning it would leave far more people dead in far less time than the Reapers could ever do. So essentially, by picking any of the endings, Shepard ends up doing exactly what the Reapers were going to do. Just, much faster. Now, but then that brought up the plot hole of, okay, then why is the Normandy crew still alive? Well, good choice. I don't know. Or, excuse me, good choice. Good question. I don't know. Again, more plot holes than Swiss cheese. So, there's one question. Did I just doom the entire galaxy in far less time than the Reapers? Did I just leave my crew behind for no apparent reason? Did I just die? What did I just do? Did you mean none of my decisions mattered in the first place? Seriously, I had far more questions than answers. It left me with more questions than it did answers, and that's what's so unfriggin' forgivable about it. You as an ending to a video game, you absolutely cannot leave the player with more questions than they do answers. You can't. Alright? That is ending 101. Is to make it satisfying, wrap all of the conflicts up, and all that, and leave them with more answers than they do questions. You can leave a few questions, but not that. That was... I'm facepalming right now. This is 5 years later, and I'm still not over this thing. And you know what? The ending to a video game isn't just the ending itself. It's also the final mission and the impact it leaves on you. Does it leave you off with a powerful, emotional punch with a satisfying final level? Or does it leave you with a boring slog of a final mission with too many cliched sections where the only notable thing that happens in that mission are the goodbyes you say to your squad mates, and that's not even in combat. And what do I need to say? That ending is so terrible. I mean, you look back on other terrible endings to video games, namely Halo 2. You look back at that game and sure, it had a terrible cliffhanger ending. Terrible. But eventually, the third game would come out and deal with everything. I mean, we knew that. And we get that. We had the multiplayer to keep us away from that terrible ending. And yeah, it's still a bad ending, don't get me wrong, but at least Halo 3 would make up for it. But here's the thing. Bungie did that mistake of having a terrible ending in the second installment, not the third. Could you imagine if Halo 3 ended with... Okay, let's say like in Halo 3, you see the Forward Unto Dawn taking off and they're about to hit the portal and then Halo fires and a flash of light and everything blinds you and then the credits roll. Like you have no idea what happened to the Chief, no idea what happened to the Arbiter, and no idea what happened to the rest of the universe. Or the galaxy, excuse me. You would be pissed. I would be pissed. But Halo 3 didn't do that. So why did Mass Effect 3 do that? Bungie made the mistake of having a terrible ending, yes, but they did it in the second installment of a trilogy. They didn't do it at the finale of it all. But you know what? Halo can get away with it because it's a linear first-person shooter, or a linear story. It's not an RPG. Mass Effect is an RPG, third-person shooter. So that means your decisions should matter in the end, and in the end, they didn't. So basically, what the ending of Mass Effect 3 told me when I first got it was, congratulations, you wasted 100 hours of your life and get nothing for it. Really? Really? Like, I can think of multiple bad endings. Like, Halo 2, Borderlands the pre-sequel, or whatever they call it. It's a weird title. That's a bad ending, in my opinion, because it leaves off on a cliffhanger and they still haven't, got around to making the new game yet. I mean, Andromeda... Okay, not Andromeda, I'm sorry, I just felt the need to bash that game. Okay. And Xenoblade Chronicles X, I mean, that game was amazing, but and you know what, the ending was cliched and it was all happy and all that, and I'm like, okay, so it's a bit cliched, but you know what, I'm satisfied, I'm good with it. Then after the credits roll, they show a bonus scene, which then throws a whole bunch more questions at me, and I'm like, okay, what? And then, of course, you all know the whole ending with someone cloaked finding Lao on the beach. He opens his eye, and then all you're left is a black screen with the subtitle text of "The story never truly ends." Really? And I had my heart shattered when they announced that they were making a Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Not because I don't want a Xenoblade Chronicles 2, don't get me wrong, but that just means I'm gonna have to wait a whole lot longer for Xenoblade Chronicles X, the sequel. Whether they call it 2 or not. Like, I have to wait so long now to find out what the heck was supposed to happen. Or they may never make a sequel at all. Dang it. And that's the worst part. When you end a game, a trilogy like that, and you know as a gamer, going into the game, that this is the final time you will play as this character. This is the final time you will be on this arc before they go whatever direction they want to. This is the final time you play as this great character, this soldier, this now galactic savior, pretty much. And they decide to end his or her arc like that? Are you kidding me? I will never forgive BioWare for that.
And you know what? Did the extended cut fix some plot holes? Yes, but that didn't make the ending more satisfying. All it did was make me go from pissed off at the ending to depressed. Depressed that they had the time and the energy to make an extended cut to fix the plot holes of the original ending. If you had the time to make a slightly better ending way after release, why didn't you just do that in the first place? Why couldn't you just make a good ending? There's a saying, if you don't have the time to do it right, you must have the time to do it over. And you know what? I think BioWare thought that they could get away with that. They didn't have the time because they already delayed Mass Effect 3 and they weren't gonna, delay it any longer, so they just wrote a cookie cutter bullcrap ending and threw it into the game and said, yeah, that's fine. Holy crap, we're at 16 minutes. But, maybe BioWare didn't have the time to do it right, but they did have the time later to do it over. But they didn't do it over. They just threw together some patchwork and patched up some things. Don't get me wrong, the extended cut is better, but it's not much better. And it's not the ending that Mass Effect players deserved. It's not. Even if you were just jumping into Mass Effect 3, never played Mass Effect 2, never played Mass Effect 1, never got attached to the lore, never even cared about any of the characters, and you just played the entire game or the gameplay, or whatever. If you're that kind of person, you as well would have been pissed off at the ending. Because you would have been like, what the heck just happened? So many plot holes, so many questions, unsatisfying as all hell. It was a disaster. That ending was a disaster. And guess what? It'll never change. It won't be fixed. It will never be the way it should have been. The best thing you can get is make your own ending. Which, don't get me wrong, some people have made some good endings. Some good fan-made endings that are like an hour long of nothing but cutscenes. And, all patched together with voices from different parts of the games. And yeah, it sounds choppy, but it's meant to be. It's all edited in. And I'm just sitting here like, that ending, while choppy and fan-made, was a much more satisfying ending than the actual one. And I'm like, if a group of fans or a single fan could make a better ending to a game than the actual developers did, that's shameful. That is absolutely shameful. How did a group of dedicated fans make a better ending than BioWare did? A group of professionals failed at making an ending, but a group of fans who probably weren't even writers, for all I know, made a better ending by slapping together some dialogue and some extra cutscenes. And I'm just sitting here thinking, wow, that was a damn good fan-made ending. And then I remember it's fan-frickin-made. It's not even real. That's what pisses me the hell off the most. So in conclusion, Mass Effect 3's ending, the original ending, you know what, frick it, we're throwing in the extended cut as well, is unsatisfying, leaves you with more questions than answers, and ultimately does not tie up all of the plot points. Or maybe it does, but it just does it in such a terrible way.